That credit card in your wallet is mathematically engineered to keep you broke until the day you die. But there is a hidden three-word loophole wealthy people use to turn that exact same debt into millions. And if you don't learn it before this video ends, you will never escape the 9-to-5 trap. There is a silent killer hiding in your wallet right now, and it's disguised as your best friend. In the next 10 minutes, I am going to reveal a hidden mathematical loophole that wealthy people use to make millions, while the exact same system keeps you trapped working a 9-to-5 forever. Most financial gurus tell you that all debt is evil, but they are lying to you. If you don't understand the invisible line between what we call good and bad debt, you are actively sacrificing your financial freedom. Today, we are following the story of one man, Alex, who learned this lesson the hard way. He went from absolute rock bottom to building a massive empire using other people's money. But there is a catch, a specific, dangerous trap he fell into right at the very end. If you skip even 1 minute of this video, you will miss the crucial warning that could save you from bankruptcy. Let's start at the beginning, where Alex made his first fatal mistake. Meet Alex, an ordinary guy who wanted what we all want: a comfortable, successful life. Alex landed a decent job making $60,000 a year, and he felt like he was finally on top of the world. To celebrate, he decided it was time to start looking the part of a successful professional. He walked straight into a luxury car dealership, eyes gleaming at the shiny metal and leather. Within 2 hours, he signed away a massive chunk of his monthly paycheck for a brand new sports car. He felt an instant rush of adrenaline as he drove it off the lot, smelling that fresh new car scent. He believed he was finally living the American dream and showing the world his worth. But what Alex didn't realize was that he had just signed his first financial death warrant. This was his very first taste of what experts call bad debt, and it was highly addictive. Within just a few weeks, the initial thrill of the new sports car began to fade into the background. In its place, a cold, hard reality started to set in as the very first monthly bill arrived in his mailbox. Alex stared at the paper in disbelief, realizing that over $700 was leaving his bank account instantly. And that wasn't all, because the high-performance car required premium fuel, expensive synthetic oil changes, and sky-high insurance premiums. He was working 40 hours a week just to fund a machine that sat in a parking lot while he worked. He quickly realized that this beautiful asset was actually a massive black hole sucking his hard-earned cash away. This is the classic definition of bad debt: borrowing money to buy things that actively lose value every single day. The car was depreciating rapidly, while his loan balance remained stubbornly high. Alex was officially running on a financial treadmill, going absolutely nowhere. To cope with the growing stress of his monthly car payments, Alex decided he needed a quick dopamine hit. He began relying on his shiny new credit cards to fund a lifestyle he could no longer afford with cash. He went out to expensive dinners with friends, ordered top-shelf drinks, and bought trendy designer clothes online. With a simple, effortless swipe of a plastic card, he could instantly feel rich without seeing his debit balance drop. It felt like magic, as if he was playing a video game with unlimited free credits and no real-world consequences. He told himself he would pay off the entire balance at the end of the month when his paycheck arrived. But when the end of the month came, there was never enough money left over to cover the damage. He made the fatal mistake of paying only the tiny minimum payment required by the credit card company. By doing this, he entered a dangerous cycle designed by banks to keep him in debt forever. What Alex didn't understand was the terrifying math of compound interest working entirely against him. His credit cards carried a staggering 24% annual interest rate, which is practically financial highway robbery. When you carry a balance, the bank charges you interest on your interest, compounding your debt daily. Alex's original $500 shopping spree quickly ballooned into $1,000 without him buying anything new. He was paying premium prices for pizzas and shirts he had consumed and worn out months ago. The minimum payments he made were barely covering the interest, leaving the principal balance completely untouched. He was essentially paying a permanent tax to the banks just for the privilege of looking wealthy in the past. This is the dark magic of compound interest when it is turned against the average consumer. It is a mathematical trap designed to be nearly impossible to escape once you fall deep inside. One cold, rainy evening, Alex sat at his desk with all his monthly statements spread out before him like a horror story. He took out a pen, opened a spreadsheet, and finally did the terrifying math he had been avoiding for months. When he added up his car loan, credit cards, and personal loans, the grand total made his stomach drop. He owed over $45,000 in high-interest consumer debt, while his bank account held a mere $300. He realized that if he lost his job tomorrow, he would be completely ruined within 30 days. The stress was physically manifested as a constant tightness in his chest and sleepless, tossing and turning nights. He was working a job he actively disliked just to pay for things he didn't even care about anymore. He had become a modern-day wage slave, bound by invisible chains of his own creation. He knew deep down in his soul that something drastic had to change immediately. Desperate for a way out of his financial prison, Alex started consuming every book and podcast on wealth creation he could find. One evening, he stumbled upon a counterintuitive concept that completely shattered his entire worldview. The book explained that wealthy people do not avoid debt. Instead, they use it as their primary weapon to build massive empires. The author wrote, "Bad debt makes you poor by draining your monthly cash flow, but good debt makes you rich by filling it." This single sentence sparkled in Alex's mind like a sudden flash of lightning in a dark sky. He realized he had been using debt entirely wrong, using it to buy liabilities instead of income-producing assets. If he could learn to master the rules of good debt, he could turn the tables on the financial system. He made a solemn vow to pay off his bad debt and learn the secret language of the wealthy. This was the exact moment his true financial education finally began. The first step of Alex's radical transformation required massive sacrifice and a complete destruction of his ego. He drove his beloved sports car back to a dealership and sold it, taking a painful $5,000 loss on the transaction. He replaced it with a highly reliable, 15-year-old used sedan that was dented but paid for entirely in cash. He canceled all his premium subscriptions, stopped eating out at expensive restaurants, and began cooking simple meals at home. He took on a grueling weekend side hustle, working extra hours to throw every single spare dollar at his high-interest credit cards. His friends laughed at his cheap car and his suddenly quiet social life, but Alex kept his eyes locked on the prize. He utilized the debt snowball method, paying off the smallest accounts first to build unstoppable psychological momentum. Month by month, the mountain of bad debt began to shrink under his relentless assault. 18 months of brutal discipline and hard work finally paid off when Alex made his very last credit card payment. He stared at the computer screen showing a beautiful, shining balance of $0 across all his accounts. For the first time in his adult life, he felt the heavy, suffocating weight lift completely off his chest. He was officially free from the clutches of bad debt, but he knew this was only the baseline of his journey. Being debt-free meant he was no longer losing money, but it didn't automatically make him wealthy. He now had an extra $1,500 in free cash flow every single month that used to go to interest. Instead of saving it in a low-yield bank account where inflation would slowly eat it away, he wanted to invest it. He was determined to find a way to make his money work for him, rather than him working for his money. He began searching for his very first good debt opportunity. Alex focused his research on real estate, the historic asset class that has created more millionaires than almost any other. He discovered that banks are incredibly eager to lend money for real estate because the property itself acts as collateral. If he wanted to buy a $100,000 stock portfolio, the bank would never lend him the money to do it. But if he wanted to buy a $100,000 house, the bank would happily write him a check for $80,000. This concept is called leverage, and it is the ultimate secret weapon of the wealthy class. It allows you to control a large, valuable asset with only a small fraction of your own money. Alex realized that instead of saving for 20 years to buy a property cash, he could use a mortgage. But he needed to find a specific type of property that would pay for its own debt. This led him to the highly lucrative world of cash-flowing rental real estate. After months of searching, Alex found a modest duplex in a growing neighborhood listed for $150,000. He put down $30,000 of his own hard-earned savings and borrowed the remaining $120,000 from a bank. This was a massive mortgage, but unlike his previous car loan, this debt was not his responsibility to pay. He rented out both sides of the duplex to reliable tenants who paid him a combined $2,000 a month. His total mortgage payment, including taxes, insurance, and interest, was only $1,200 a month. This meant his tenants were paying off his massive bank loan for him every single month. On top of that, he was pocketing a clean $800 in pure monthly profit after all expenses. This is the beautiful, mathematical reality of good debt, using a bank's money to acquire an asset that pays for itself. Alex soon realized that good real estate debt doesn't just pay you a monthly cash flow. It actually benefits you in three distinct ways. First, his tenants were actively building his equity by paying down the principal balance of his loan every single month. Second, the property was naturally appreciating in market value over time, matching or beating the rate of inflation. And third, the tax laws were heavily skewed in his favor, allowing him to write off interest payments and depreciation. He was building massive, long-term wealth using a high-value asset that he only paid 20% of the price for. If the property value went up by 10%, his return on his actual invested capital was much higher due to leverage. He was using the exact same financial system that previously enslaved him to now rapidly build his freedom. The bank was no longer his master. They were now his silent, highly profitable business partners. With his duplex cash flowing beautifully, Alex didn't stop there. He decided to scale his operations. He lived frugally, saved his monthly rental profits, and combined them with his active job income. Within 2 years, he had enough capital to buy a second investment property, a beautiful 4-unit apartment building. He secured another commercial loan, adding another $400,000 of good debt to his name. To the untrained eye, Alex looked like he was drowning in over $500,000 of debt. His old friends were shocked and warned him that he was taking on massive, irresponsible risks. But Alex knew the truth. His tenants were covering every single penny of his debt payments while sending him thousands in monthly profit. His net worth was skyrocketing while his personal out-of-pocket expenses remained incredibly low. He was systematically building a self-sustaining financial machine that operated entirely on leverage. Let's pause Alex's story for a moment to look at the stark, undeniable difference between these two financial paths. On one side, we have bad debt, which you use to buy depreciating liabilities like sports cars, designer clothes, and luxury vacations. This type of debt drains your cash flow, charges high interest, and forces you to work harder just to stay afloat. On the other side, we have good debt, which you use to acquire appreciating, cash-flowing assets like real estate or profitable businesses. This type of debt is paid off by other people, puts money into your pocket, and offers massive tax advantages. Bad debt makes you a slave to the lender, while good debt turns the lender into your growth engine. The rich don't avoid debt. They master the art of using other people's money to build their dream lives. Once you understand this fundamental paradigm shift, your relationship with money will never be the same again. Alex was now incredibly successful, managing a portfolio of 10 properties and generating over $10,000 a month in passive cash flow. He felt completely invincible, believing that the real estate market would continue to climb forever without any interruptions. This dangerous confidence led him to make a classic, fatal mistake that has ruined even the most seasoned investors. He began over-leveraging his properties, borrowing against his existing equity to buy even more real estate faster. He was taking on higher loan-to-value ratios, leaving himself with very little breathing room or cash reserves. He believed that speed was everything and that he needed to build his empire as quickly as humanly possible. He forgot that leverage is a double-edged sword that cuts incredibly deep when the wind changes direction. The very tool that built his massive wealth was about to turn into his worst nightmare. Without warning, the global economy took a sudden, violent downturn, and a massive recession swept across the country. Companies began laying off workers by the thousands, and the local job market dried up almost overnight. Several of Alex's tenants lost their sources of income and could no longer afford to pay their monthly rent. Because of his rapid expansion, Alex had very little cash reserves put away in his bank accounts. He was suddenly forced to pay multiple massive mortgages out of his own pocket with no rental income coming in. The high leverage he used meant that even a 10% drop in occupancy would completely wipe out his profits. The bank didn't care that his tenants were unemployed. They demanded their mortgage payments on the exact same date every month. Alex found himself staring down the barrel of the exact same financial terror he thought he had escaped forever. To survive this sudden economic storm, Alex had to make incredibly difficult and painful business decisions. He worked tirelessly, negotiating temporary payment plans with his lenders and helping his tenants find government assistance programs. He cut his personal expenses back down to the bare minimum, living on rice and beans once again to preserve cash. He was forced to sell 2 of his prized properties at a discount just to raise emergency liquidity to save the rest. It was a brutal, exhausting test of mental strength and resilience that lasted for 12 grueling months. But because his core assets were fundamentally strong and located in great neighborhoods, he managed to avoid complete bankruptcy. He survived the crisis, but he emerged from the experience with a profound new respect for the dangers of leverage. He learned that even good debt can kill you if you do not manage your risks with extreme caution. Alex's journey teaches us that the path to financial freedom is never a straight, easy line. Debt is not simply good or bad based on the asset. It is also determined by how you manage your risk. Good debt becomes incredibly dangerous when you take on too much of it without keeping a strong cash safety net. True financial mastery means balancing the power of leverage with the absolute security of liquid emergency savings. Today, Alex is wealthier than ever, but he operates his business with a highly conservative, bulletproof strategy. He keeps 6 months of mortgage payments in cash reserves at all times to handle any future economic storms easily. He uses debt as a highly controlled, precise scalpel to build wealth, rather than a reckless sledgehammer. He controlled his debt, rather than letting his debt control him, and that made all the difference in his life. Now, let's bring the focus back to you and your personal financial journey. Every single day, you are making choices that will either lead you toward financial freedom or lock you in a cage. Every time you swipe a credit card for something you don't need, you are choosing to build the bank's empire. Every time you save capital, learn about leverage, and invest in your education, you are building your own. You do not need $1 million to start. You simply need to change how you look at every dollar in your hand. Treat every dollar as a little soldier that can either be sacrificed for temporary pleasure or deployed to bring back more money. The choice between living paycheck to paycheck or building a legacy is entirely in your hands right now. It all starts with making a firm decision to master the rules of the financial game today. But here is the ultimate question that separates the amateurs from the true masters of money. If you had access to $50,000 of low-interest bank debt right now, what is the exact first asset you would buy to make sure that money pays for itself? Would you buy a cash-flowing rental property like Alex did, invest it into building a scalable online business? Or is there a secret third option you are thinking of? Let me know your exact strategy in the comments below, because I will be personally replying to the best ideas. If you found value in Alex's story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We have a highly exclusive video coming up next week that reveals the exact 3 tax loopholes the ultra-rich use to pay $0 in taxes legally. You absolutely do not want to miss that one. So click on the video on your screen right now to keep learning, and I will see you there.